Hello, how you doing? Um, I am posting a video because I just got my new webcam and I've posted a video to Facebook. I've posted a video to YouTube, and now I decided to make my first video post for my blog. Well, I'm going to post it on YouTube first, but then link it to my blog. Um, I was thinking once again about Advent, which was what my previous video was inspired by. And I just had some thoughts that were inspired by a discussion we had at small group tonight, which was led by my friend C.G. Taylor. It was a really good discussion and got me thinking about a number of things, including just first of all, the thought that all of our lives are centered around what we must do in order to get the life that we want, right? So most of my behavior is motivated by steps I believe I need to take in order to um, have the career that I want, in order to make the kind of money that I want to make. Um, some decisions uh, are often motivated by desire to one day have a family, um, or the kind of friends that I want to have, or the kind of character that I want to build in myself. And there's all kinds of pressures and expectations associated with that from the very beginning of our lives, but then especially as we step into the world of adult responsibility. And expectations come from forces outside of us, including our family and friends and society and church and all kinds of other forces, but also from within ourselves, our own expectations about what we should be and what we want to be. And I find that at the heart of the gospel is an why can't I say that word? Invitation to be liberated from all of those concerns, especially when it comes down to the essence of who we are and our very purpose for existence. I find that the Gospels invite us to not ask those questions, to not um, ask, what do I need to do next in order to um, answer the essential question of who we are. Um, Let me further elaborate. The Pharisees in the Gospels, if you read them, are constantly asking questions. This is something you see repeated over and over again throughout the Gospels, that the Pharisees ask Jesus questions um, a lot. They bombard him with questions. And most, if not all, of the questions fall along the following lines. The Pharisees tell Jesus that, hey, we have these certain expectations about who the Messiah should be, what he should be like, what sort of things he should do, what sort of people he should associate with. And they ask Jesus, so since you don't meet those expectations, how can you possibly claim to be the Messiah? Or how can others possibly claim that you are the Messiah? And one contrast that I've noticed between the Pharisees and, let's say, the disciples is the disciples never seem to ask these sorts of questions. They ask Jesus lots of questions related to other things, but they never ask him the same sorts of questions that the Pharisees ask him. In fact, the only time the disciples have that kind of conversation with Jesus, Jesus is the one to initiate it. Jesus asks his disciples, who do you say that I am? The disciples aren't the ones to initiate that kind of question. And the idea regarding this that's related to Advent is that another group of people we find not asking those questions are the people that are with Christ at the time of his birth. Um, Mary and Joseph, the priest Simeon, the shepherds, the wise men, the prophet Anna. Um, None of these people seem to ask those questions, and of course, they can't ask Jesus those questions. He's an infant and therefore unable to answer them. But what I mean is that they don't even seem to pose these questions as a prerequisite for how they decide to respond to Jesus. Um, They don't seem to be asking these questions even to themselves or to the angels that announce Jesus or anyone else. Um, their response is simply, and the scriptures repeat these kinds of words over and over again, especially in Luke when talking about the birth of Christ. They marvel, they are in awe, they are in wonder, and they worship. And of course, Jesus' followers would later begin to ask those questions and even try to answer them. A lot of the Gospels seem like they're seeking to answer those sorts of questions. But it seems like the time that Jesus is with the disciples and with people on earth, the time that God has come to them, is not the time for asking those kinds of questions. And I think I kind of understand why that is. So, for example, if you want to truly marvel and be in awe and even be transformed by, say, something like a sunset, you can't simultaneously pose questions about how hydrogen gets converted into helium, and kind of go off thinking about the science of everything, and simultaneously have that same sense of awe that you have just when you look at the sunset and take it in. The hydrogen getting converted into helium and the science of stars gives you a very different picture than what you simply see with your eyes and the scene that takes your breath away when you take it all in. Of course, you can kind of go back and forth between awe and then wondering about how it all works, but you can't be in awe and ask those questions at the same time. You also can't simultaneously be in awe of a sunset and be thinking about, let's say, what time you'll need to set your alarm tonight so that you can wake up in time tomorrow to see the sun rise again. If you start going off on that kind of rabbit trail, you will lose the experience of simply being in sheer wonder. Wonder is something that requires our undivided attention, it seems like. The sum of this and the way that it's related to Advent is that Advent is not a time for trying to figure out, for example, precisely how Jesus can be God and human. And I think even more importantly than that, it's not a time for thinking about what I must do in order to become a better Christian, please God more, etc. And my challenge to you and to myself primarily is to save the resolutions for New Year's. Advent is a time for wonder. Advent is a time for waiting for Christ to grow in us and accepting his unconditional love without feeling like we have to do anything to earn it, without even trying to do anything to earn it. And Advent is a time for marveling that God would come to us in this way. Happy Advent.